You're safer here than any place else. Now just lock yourselves in and keep quiet.
You are now tuned in to the Quiet Storm at the Metaphysical Dentist. The doctor's in.
With your host, Zebulon and Kingdom. Thanks for joining us for another session of Metaphysical Dentist, where we discuss all the things that most people don't want to talk about. And so today we're going to be discussing realizing your house is haunted and what to do and what that feels like. And we look forward to sharing this time with you.
We'd like to first thank you all for listening to our first podcast and showing your support on social media. We really enjoyed talking to you. I'd like everybody to go join the Metaphysical group on Facebook so you can discuss this episode and new episodes you'd like to hear about.
And if you'd ever like to be a part of the podcast or at least a guest on here, please let us know because we love hearing different people's perspectives. Starting off, going to give you some background on that house and why we moved in. So this was back in 2013, and we were living in Lynchburg, and Chris had just had his really bad accident. He had a traumatic brain injury and had a hard time, like, kind of coming back online for a minute. So we had some struggles, and we decided to move down to North Carolina. My parents had a small farm there, and they kind of needed some help, and we just needed a little bit of a break to kind of catch our breath. So that was when we first moved down there. But we were starting to, Chris, you remember we were experiencing some stuff at our house there that was unusual.
Yeah, it was almost a precursor to what we went through in North Carolina. We used to hear voices. We'd go in the bathroom at one end of the house, and I would hear Tina's voice, like calling my name. And then I would come out immediately after, and she was in the bedroom on the other end of the house.
Yeah, and I'd go back there and go to the bathroom, and I'd hear Chris calling me, and I'd be like, what, you know? And I'd come out, and he would be just totally clueless. Like, he didn't say anything, didn't know anything. So, but we were dealing with so much at that moment. You know, I had to put my dog to sleep, and he had just had that traumatic brain injury. And we just had too much going on, and it was kind of one of those things where I was always like, you know, pushing it to the side, not really wanting to acknowledge it.
And me having a new brain injury, I wasn't real sure about myself because I had to learn to walk again without falling, and I had a lot of weird stuff happening in my own body. I was learning I couldn't trust the things that I would see sometimes and hear. Yeah, it was pretty wild to hear things like that.
So when we got down there, the house itself was a little bit in disarray because my mom and my stepdad, Bill, they had moved down there. They hadn't even really finished unpacking yet, so there was just boxes everywhere all through the house. They kind of like had a path going. Bill was having heart problems then. I think it was like he was getting ready to have a triple bypass surgery. So it was just kind of a lot going on with them, and then just the house was kind of not put away, not organized, and all of that. So we got down there and started organizing the house, putting away the boxes, trying to get it cleaned up and, you know, feeling like a home again. It wasn't long that we were there that we started seeing stuff. So first thing, what do you remember? The first thing was what, like the ghost kitty?
I used to see it was in the shape of a cat. It was really dark, and you'd see it at the corner of your eye, but it was enough to make you question what you're seeing, like whether it was a shadow from something else.
Yeah, and my mom had a friend of hers previously stay with her for a little while who used to see it as well. I saw like basically like the size of a bobcat, and I remember one night I was in the living room by myself, and it kind of basically jumped in front of me, and I saw it like full on, but it was just the outline of a ghost bobcat.
It didn't have any features, like facial features.
Mm-hmm. It was disconcerting, but I wasn't really terrified of it. I was just kind of like, whoa, this is different. And then, you know, it started like in the bathroom. Like in the bathroom, seems like a lot of stuff happened to both you and me.
Everyone that went there was uneasy in that section of the house, in that hallway, in that bathroom. It always seemed to make you feel a certain way when you were in there.
Yep. And Chris was also like having, for lack of a better term, seizures where he would just lose consciousness, and often like he would feel something push him in that bathroom. One time I had something push me, and I just totally fell backwards into the bathtub and hit my head. A lot of weird stuff. One time I went to wash my face in the morning, and these weren't like old faucets that came loose, but I went to wash my face. I'm washing my face, and I'm sorry, before I wash my face. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm thinking about it, and all of a sudden, the hot water cuts on by itself. And I was like, okay, this is weird. First thing in the morning, I'm just must be half asleep, half dreaming. But then, like, another day, I was washing my face, and I actually heard somebody and felt somebody come behind me to the point where I thought it was Chris, like, standing right up next to me, like, breathing down my neck. Heard the boards creak in the floor around me. And I'm just talking to him, and he's not answering. And I'm like, okay, all right, way to be creepy. But as soon as I get the soap out of my eye, I look in the mirror, and I see nobody standing behind me, but I still feel something.
The mirror was always a hot spot for this stuff. When you looked in the mirror, you would see things
Like move behind
off in
you.
a distance,
Uh-huh.
but it was enough to make you question if you saw it.
Right.
And like with my brain injury, I had a lot of foggy days that I don't remember well, and I didn't really trust what I felt or what I saw a lot of times. But I felt a lot of stuff too before we really started talking about it. You know.
And then we started like hearing and seeing a lot of the same thing together. Like the night we were laying in bed, and we like literally like heard some kind of animal, and it wasn't the dogs that we were used to, but we heard an animal like come in and like bump into stuff around the wall and like kind of growl, and nothing was down there. And I remember you go, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "Yep, just go to sleep."
The dogs they had too would chase things that wasn't necessarily there. You remember?
Yeah.
They would. They say that pets are a lot more sensitive, you know, with their senses than we are.
And then once we had the colony of cats that descended upon the farm.
They were drawn to that.
Yeah. So all kinds of things going on. Of course, your usual sort of shadow figures started popping up, and then we noticed that in the horse field that, you know, our horses were scared of the round pen area. And it had like good grass. So we were like, hey, why don't you go and get some good grass in the round pen? And they were like, nope.
And the horse said, hell no.
Yeah. And so, like, I'm like, what's up with this round pen? Like, why won't you come in here? And, like, I remember walking in there and just feeling like something off. And I would lose hearing in one of my ears. And we would feel like heat coming off the ground.
Yeah, it would make me dizzy when I walked in it. Immediately, I would feel different than, you know, standing right outside of it.
Mm-hmm. I was so curious. I was like, what's the cause? What's going on? What's different about this? So I kept going in there and like looking, and I did notice some weird stuff. I don't know how weird it is, but it seemed weird to me that it seemed like there was heat coming out of the ground for one, like a strong heat. And then also there was like, it looked like some red tinged like grass and vegetation in that area. Like iron oxide basically was, you know, influencing the color of the plants. And I'm not a scientist, so I don't know technically what that is. But the more I started looking, the more I started seeing like there was giant pieces of like smoky quartz crystal everywhere. Still didn't know what it was, but I had heard like some things like, you know, the Native Americans used to bury their dead and mark their graves with smoky quartz. So we had some stuff going on, but it wasn't like really, really scary yet. For me, I was just like, what's going on? This is crazy. Never experienced this much at one, you know, in one time.
The bad part was like all of my life I had to shield myself because I was very sensitive to energies and stuff. And after my accident, you know, my personality changed. I had to learn emotions again and how to deal with them. And all the safety measures I took before to make sure, you know, nothing like that happened was gone. So I had to, on top of my brain injuries and dealing with the memory loss and, you know, the depression really from losing my career and everything, I had to learn how to guard myself against this because this house was so active in the beginning, you know.
Yeah.
It was hard to figure out a way to shield myself and stay grounded when it was difficult to even stand up on the ground, you know. It was rough. You know, I had a hard time and then not trusting my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was many times when I would see something or hear something and not say anything just for the simple fact that I didn't want to sound crazy.
Well,
I didn't want to worry you know.
right. Like my whole life, I'd been experiencing strange stuff that I just pushed to the side. Like we just didn't talk about that. You know, half the time I didn't know if like I was just perceiving something strange or what. But yeah, you don't really talk about that too much, and you never know how much is you, how much whatever. I think it really hit home with us when we started to experience things together and see the same things, and it was like, okay, it's not a hallucination. It's
You also heard from your mother's friend that lived in that room before we moved in,
right.
and she had a lot of the same experiences. Somehow y'all got to talking about it, and she confirmed seeing like the cat figure, and,
Right.
hearing stuff and feeling uneasy in the same place as we were.
And noticing like that the horses didn't want to go in the round
Yeah.
pen and they were acting weird about it. We also had free range chickens, then, and it was cool. I mean, honestly, like at first it was just odd, a little disconcerting, but I love animals and I was really happy to, like, I had just lost, remember I had just lost Widget
Yeah.
when we were up in Virginia, which she was like my little fur baby for sure. And it broke my heart. So I kind of took solace in hanging out with the horses and, I enjoyed the chickens. I enjoyed like that little animal farm life. Definitely was a bright part of my time there. But noticing that whatever was in the field or whatever sort of presence that was going on there, it made the horses really uncomfortable. And like Buddy was just terrified all the time. So that bothered me. And then it was kind of like for a while, it was like, well, if I can't fix it or I can't change it, then I just need to ignore it,
Yeah, my kids too, when they started coming down there, they immediately started making comments about seeing me come in the room when I was somewhere else, or talking to me or hearing me talk and I wasn't there. They from the beginning, because they're very sensitive too, they started seeing all the things too. So it was literally everybody that come in there for any amount of time
Right.
had some sort of experience, and most of the people never believed in that until a lot of people didn't talk about it just because it was
fear,
so
too,
strange.
yeah.
It's such a stigma about things like that.
Well, I know things started ramping up spiritually, and it seemed to be like draining us as well.
There was a lot of depression in the house too, because your stepfather was sick, and your mother was having a hard time dealing with it, and it was I had depression, brain injury. I was vulnerable to a lot of this stuff, and you was dealing with everything.
I
So
was
everybody
feeling
had a lot of
overwhelmed, yeah.
chaotic energy, and we had our dark days where it didn't take much to push us into depression. Like,
Right. I think we definitely like had an issue with depression, all of us.
now we know though that like that's the oppression that you feel sometimes from these negative entities and whatever you want to call it. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I would describe some of it as demonic.
For sure.
Very
Yeah.
aggressive. Interacting with the physical world. To me, that's something a little more dangerous than just a ghost that happens to wander through your house.
Yeah, no, it was like Grand Central Station for pretty much every
Yeah.
every metaphysical type of entity you can imagine. There, seeing people, well, I should say not people, but I saw like ghosts from all different kinds of time periods.
And there was never a day that something didn't happen to
Right.
to one of us. Normally it was, a few times every day,
Well, and then Chris had like I don't know, like 40 concussions in a year it seemed like. And so it was just
Yeah.
over and over, like, and these weren't like little falls. These were like major falls where, he had to have a CT scan almost every time, and there was lots of blood
I
loss.
shed gallons of blood, and most of it was in the bathroom where this activity happened. And a few times I literally felt hands on my back before I blacked out. And I never felt when I landed. So I was out standing up, you know.
And we were literally just trying to survive all of that. So it was kind of like, you know, where do you put your energy in just trying to maintain and, you know, just get by? And for us, it was, you know, making sure that he was okay and trying to keep him from falling or hurting his head. And, you know, as far as
me, it was protecting everybody in there because that's how I am. But I couldn't even do anything for myself, and it started making me frustrated because, you know, it's like one of you would have an experience and it would scare you, and I had them too. They would scare me, but as a protector, I want to help you all. And your mom and your stepdad was going through so much. I wanted to protect you all from it because Bill was having his medical issues. Your mother was dealing with, you know, the love of her life going down, and you was trying to hold everybody together on top of taking care of me. And one day I got frustrated, and you know, I kind of yelled out loud, like, you know, come mess with me, leave him alone, leave the girls alone. If you want to fight,
yeah, I had
I'm the
no
one.
idea you were doing that.
I
But,
felt hopeless at that moment, like in my medical condition.
right.
I didn't feel like I had a lot of time. I'd had, you know, there was days, there was weeks I went to the hospital in the ambulance 3 times.
Yeah,
I didn't recover, and these was concussions on concussions. You start to feel hopeless, like.
Well, and then there was like blood everywhere. There's a couple of times I thought I had lost you, and I was starting to get really scared. Bill was in really bad shape, and you know, we all were depressed. I mean, clearly we were all depressed. I think everybody in the house felt hopeless.
Oppressed.
Yeah,
Oppressed
definitely
and
oppressed.
depressed. It was.
And then one day, you know, Bill woke up and he was having problems breathing, and you know, I didn't know what to do, but I knew that we needed to call the ambulance, and it was a very sad day, and we lost him unexpectedly that day. Basically the ambulance got to the hospital, and we were there, and we were waiting to go back and see him, and they kept saying it'll be a minute, and then, you know, they came out with, you know, bad news, and with the preacher, and it was just shocking. Like, I was just in disbelief, and I know you never plan on these kinds of things, but it was just bad. Like, it's hard to even talk about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was.
and then, you know, really, like, everybody kind of went to hell because we were all, like, so sad. My mom was, like, just kind of losing it. And, like, it was starting to affect the animals at this point. Like, and basically, long story short, with the dogs, they were really close to Bill. And they were older dogs, but they started to go downhill. Like, both of them came to me and was, like, trying to tell me something. And they kept going under the deck, like they were trying to say goodbye. Seymour had terrible diabetes, and it was bad. Like, both of them ended up passing away.
That day, their neighbor come over and saw me in the driveway and thought I was your brother, and he was very aggressive with me. And he said, well, I know something happened to Bill, and I'm sorry about that, but you got to keep them dogs quiet. We made an agreement. I said, this is not the time for that. I said, you're lucky it wasn't Charlie, Bill's son, you know, your brother, because he wouldn't have took it like I did.
Well, there was something crazy about that,
too. Oh,
too.
yeah, he was very aggressive. We later found out he had brain cancer.
Well, we were in the country, right? We're in the country, and so we're not, like, all on top of each other, and, like, you know, the dogs bark. I guess they were annoying sometimes, but, you know.
His anger didn't match the situation. It was very aggressive.
Well, it was like a month. Like, it was like 30 days of just pure, just emotional, just destruction. So, we had lost Bill, and then both the dogs, they died. Then one of the horses was old, but he happened to fall down in the field during a holiday weekend. And, I don't know if y'all know about a horse, but sometimes if a horse falls down and can't get back up, especially if they're older like that, you have to put them down because their stuff starts shifting inside of them, and it's like torture. It's like really painful.
Yeah.
I mean, and Dallas was like, I don't know, I think he was like 25 or so. He was really old for a horse.
Yeah.
But it was very traumatic because we couldn't get a vet out there. We had to, put him down ourselves. And
there was a snowball of death and pain and darkness it kept rolling and getting bigger.
Yeah.
And you keep thinking this has got to be the last thing that happens.
Yeah, no.
And it just kept going.
Right. And then the next thing that happened was like, one day we came home and the free-range chickens were in the front yard being eaten by 2 golden retrievers, which aren't, they're not like aggressive dogs or anything. We'd never even seen them before.
They were tearing it apart like a lion. They were fighting each other to tear it up.
It was hard. I'm an animal lover, and it was just a ghastly scene especially on top of everything else. And so, there was that. And then literally, I think it was like a week later, one night, the next door neighbor who always was fussing about the dogs, apparently went into the woods behind our house and shot himself. So all of a sudden, like one night, we start seeing like the paddy wagon go back into the woods, and we're like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, it was.
And I mean, it was just definitely.
We knew it was bad. We didn't have no idea what had happened though.
And an area of evil. And then, like spiritually, like we're all like super depressed. We feel in despair. We just feel like there's a sense of loss and hopelessness in the house. And my mom was grieving, and her and Bill had been together most of their adult lives, like for her, I think they've been together like 25 years.
Yeah.
And she was just lost with grief,
It seems like when pain and depression, the more it rises, the more certain dark things feed upon it and seem to gain power. Mm-hmm. And they get bolder, and, they attack you more, and it's more aggressive. Mm-hmm. It just seems like as you go down, the activity goes up and it gets more intense.
It feeds on your sadness, fear, despair, all of those negative things. And then we started seeing a lot more. Like, I noticed I was seeing shadow figures, and I know Mom was, like, talking to him because she thought, like, Bill was trying to talk to her. Yeah. And we were just seeing, like, just different kinds of ghosts. One day we were, like, in the field. Well, we had an above-ground pool, and we were in the pool. And I looked out into the field, and I saw, like, I don't know, it looked like Quakers, a whole bunch of them, like, coming closer, like, in freeze frames. And then...
Or, like, Civil War era clothes. That's kind of what
they're
it
dressed
reminded
in
me
black
of.
and... Yeah, maybe Civil War era. But I was, like, just open-mouthed, and I looked at Chris, and he's looking, too, and he says, I see it, too. And, like, literally we're seeing the same thing. So just, like, way too much going on.
It looked like a film strip. They flickered. As they moved, they flickered like it was a messed up tape playing.
Right. Like they weren't fluid.
But all of them, I don't know if you remember that, but they all were staring directly at us.
Yeah, I remember. It was creepy. It was super creepy.
Yeah, and, like, moving a little bit forward.
Mm-hmm.
And
like, I remember Sarah, like, she'd come over and visit, but she'd be like, I'm leaving before it gets dark. She was like, something bad out there. Yeah. And then the chickens, what was left of the chickens, they were, like, trying to come up and stay as close to the door as they possibly could. Like, they had given up on going to their roost and was trying just to come up on the front porch.
And at this point, we had about 20 cats. We had 2 show
living
up
outside,
right before this. Within a matter of about 6 months, we had 20 cats just from the 2 that showed up.
Right.
And they hung out outside, around the door. And it was weird the way they congregated.
Yeah, I remember trying to call, like, somebody to come and help us round up the cats, like, animal
And of course,
control.
nobody wanted to come pick him up
Yeah.
because cats are a dime a dozen.
Right. But yeah, they were like just reproducing and flocking to that area. I had never seen anything like this before. And then Buddy, poor Buddy, Buddy was our horse. It was his companion, Dallas, that we had to put down. So Buddy was there alone. And I just remember feeling so bad for him. Like, luckily we found him a good home, but like I felt like he was just getting more scared. He was more terrified. And so, anyway, just back to like what was going on there and the things we started to take more notice of, because clearly we were being, it was definitely an aggressive thing going on,
Yeah, we was under attack.
and we were seeing more and more. So, like when I say Grand Central Station, truly mean that. We were seeing, like, I saw us. There was one that liked to hang out that looked like a bootlegger.
Yeah.
And he had an evil look with
There was
like
the one
these
inside
yellow
with
eyes.
a hat that always showed
Yeah.
up. He would be right
Staring
at
at
your
people.
face, like he'd be up near your face when you see him, and then, he would disappear.
And then and we would try. Let's see, we tried just using the Bible and like praying and and asking Jesus Christ to help us, and it did. But it just it was like I just couldn't keep up with it.
It
Like
was
we
too
even
much,
heard,
yeah.
we had some sage. We were burning some sage, then trying to.
We found Sage and Smudge shop.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Zebulon.
We found a metaphysical shop in
Hey,
Zebulon.
Pat and Carrie.
Yep.
They were
Were
awesome.
lifesavers for us as far as just like having somebody to talk to. It was like having a therapist that didn't think you were crazy for talking about this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
helping us through it.
Helping us
talk
through it.
Whenever we would go in there, it would be, several people, and this is a small town. Mm-hmm. It seemed like they were doing really well there to be, a shop that country people probably wouldn't necessarily go to.
It was a lot of people. I noticed a lot of people looking like they were buying smudge. Sage to smudge with, and looking scared. I just recognized
I
that.
saw that a lot too.
But we did try like contacting some churches to seek out like some sort of, can somebody come and help us? How do we deal with this? And couldn't get any response. And then I remember we asked like the people, Pat and Carrie at Sage and Smudge, like, hey, what do you do in this situation? Like who do you call? And they gave us some recommendations. One of them, they gave me a psychic to call, and that she didn't even call me back. I guess she saw it was a lot there.
She's a psychic. She probably knew what was waiting on her if she did call.
Right.
So.
And then they gave me the number of a shaman who, truly amazing. Like, wasn't what I expected. I didn't know what to expect, and I come from a Native American background, but we had never talked about that or anything. And, I was just kind of scared. But the first time I called him, I was talking to him. We had told him about what was going on, and it didn't scare him. But he was, like, immediately, like, he was on point. Like, he asked us, like, hey, do you have, like, a strange catty corner sort of wall in your living room? And that was where the fireplace was. And I said, yes. And he said, there is a lady in there, and she's, dressed, and it looks like she's a bride, like she's dressed in white. And he was like, go in there and just, ask her to please go home. And I was like,
we both walked in there, and you could see the
reflection of
legs
the
and
fireplace.
the reflection of the glass on the fireplace as he's telling us that. And he'd never been there before.
Right. And that was the same spot, like that whole area where we were seeing stuff being moved around.
Where it was thrown when I was watching it.
Yeah, like lifting in front of our eyes by itself. And I guess she just didn't like the way we decorated. But she wasn't one of the aggressive ones. Like, it was like she was just there. Like I said, this place was like Grand Central Station. I did walk into my mom's room once when I kept hearing her, talk to somebody, and I walked in to like see who she was talking to, and I remember like seeing something I had never seen before and really couldn't explain. All I can tell you is that it looked like a dumbwaiter that like was on the wall that just opened, and it was like I was seeing like a light that had every color of the rainbow in it, and then it just went away. And I'm like, what did I just see? Am I seeing stuff? I ran up to the wall, I put my hand on it, it felt hot. And so anyway, we get the shaman, we get Roland out there to come and check it out. And I had told him about like what I had seen there in Mom's room, like what looked like the dumbwaiter and stuff. And he said it sounds like a portal. He walks in and like literally goes right to where it would have been
Yeah.
on the wall. And so basically he's like, yeah, you've got like a train station here.
And he said the first thing we have to do is cover up the mirrors because the spirits can jump in, or demons or whatever can jump in the mirror and appear in another mirror in your house. So if you're having a lot of activity, remove some of the mirrors. They seem to be like a
And strangely enough, like there was a big mirror in my mom's room right across from where that portal thing was on the wall. But yeah, he came in and he actually worked outside since we had seen so much outside. And you know, we had told him like we've experienced a lot of loss here, a lot of pain here, and
shed a lot of
like
blood.
I don't care who helps us, I just really need some help. You know, it was beyond like feeling, you know, religious and worried. Like we were just happy to have somebody that was actually willing to help us.
Anybody to also just confirm like what we were seeing. And you know, even though we knew this was really happening, he kind of confirmed that we wasn't crazy, that this happens.
Yeah.
You know.
And he was picking up like whatever was going on outside. He said, you know, basically something really bad happened here a long time ago. I don't know when, I don't know what exactly, but I know that there was something where there was like a tragedy, a loss, like a huge loss of life. And so he was saying, you know, he felt like, or not, he felt like he knew that some of those spirits were just lost, like, you know, didn't know how to go home. And, you know, he was trying to tell them, hey, go home, you need to go home. But he did say, like, some of those spirits were, like, angry about whatever had happened all those years ago. And really, they wanted to stick around because they wanted revenge, even though it wasn't us that did it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, being outside at night was kind of something we all knew, like, maybe you shouldn't do that if you feel in a certain way.
He also, when he first went in, I think he made a comment like, "Whoa, like slow down," you know, like they were rushing up to
Rushing
him
him.
because I suppose they know who can interact with him or
Well, we were just scared too. It wasn't that we weren't seeing him and noticing him, but
Yeah.
I just like I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. You
you have to
know,
really watch what you give your energy to,
Right.
and this sort of thing.
I did have like that feeling inside, like don't feed it fear. Like try, even if I felt scared, I didn't want to act scared. Felt like it gave it power. There were some nasty things there too, like definitely what I would call demonic, like you said. I don't even want to talk about them. We're not gonna go there.
Yeah, I will. So, you know, as I'm having these seizures, you know, more often than not, I would feel the hands on me, like I was saying, and then it got to where I would hear something talking and push me. You know, and it's only so many times that can happen, and you can't write it off as you're just imagining things.
Right.
And I was skeptical about a lot of things. You know, I saw ghosts and whatever shadow people a lot in my life, but I'd never seen them like physically interact with people.
Like scratch us and everything. Yeah.
And I really have a feeling that they're attracted to people that are sick, people that like I was going through, you know, traumatic events, you know, health wise
And sadness and hopelessness.
yeah, it was like we created a perfect storm for these to just thrive and, you know, have free reign all over the house. And, you know, all of our pain just fed it. It just kept growing. And you don't realize it until you're removed from it, like, you know, how intense it was and the effects it has on you.
I lost you one time.
Yeah,
Like you choked in front of me one time and was gone,
Yeah,
eyes open. Well, that was something propelled me over the bed, and I like jumped over the bed.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like me. I'm not that quick. I'm kind of slow.
I was choking and I was walking, trying to run in the bathroom, and
You fell
yeah,
backwards.
I blacked out. Everything went black, and I started seeing snakes weave in and out of each other right above my head, and it was completely black. I didn't feel scared. I like felt relief, like kind of like a out-of-body experience or near-death experience, where you just feel at ease.
I didn't have time to think. Like, I feel like there was definitely, like, I had guardian angels watching over us or trying to, but it definitely propelled me forward. And I jumped over the
broke
bed.
the floor that time. You remember after that we had a dent in the floor and we'd walk and it would.
Yeah, but he was choking and he was on his back. Like, you were choking and you were on your back.
Yeah.
And I've done the Heimlich maneuver before, but I'd never done it in that angle. But somehow I was able, I was guided to just grab you in the right spot, and then
and I'm not a little guy.
And came back. So, like, it was at least once a week that I thought I was going to lose Chris. And, it definitely put everything in perspective. Like, you learn what's important, what's not important.
And I'd already decided that this was the end.
Yeah, he
the
was about to give
doctors
up.
and the neurologist at Duke were telling me, you can't keep taking these.
You were cut off from CT scans.
One day you're not going to get up, and you start to believe that after a while.
We had some interesting, it wasn't all bad. Like, I had some good experiences. I definitely had more of an awakening there than, it was like an accelerated awakening.
Yeah, we started right.
That was when I definitely started really getting interested again in crystals, because I think I've always been a rock hound my life, but the crystals were like something I felt, crazy as it sounds, I felt like they were my friends. And I started getting the basically downloads from God, as I call them, where you just get some information, you don't know where it came from, and it started there. And then we had that cool experience, or I don't want to say cool, but it wasn't scary like all the other ones with the ectoplasm, right?
Oh yeah, the orb.
The orb, we didn't know what to call it. So this was one of our shared experiences where we both saw, felt, and experienced the same thing at once.
In broad daylight.
In broad daylight, in summer.
Completely sober.
Yeah, annoyingly sober.
Annoyingly sober.
At that time.
Sunday morning sober. I was laying on the bed behind Tina, and like I said, it was in the middle of the daytime. The fan was blowing on us, the box fan. And I was laying behind her with my arm around her, and something caught my eye right above her head, and it was a black. It looked smoky, but it was opaque. You couldn't see through it at all. It was really black, and this is in the daylight, so everything in contrast is white. The ceiling, the walls. So I watch it raise up, and it gets about halfway to the ceiling, and that's when I tapped you on the back, and I said, "Look."
Yeah, and you said it had come out of the back of my head, right?
Yeah,
okay.
You immediately saw it, what I was pointing at.
Yeah, and at that point, it was like we were kind of dazed. I was I wanted to say, "What is that?" and oh my goodness, but I couldn't talk. You couldn't talk.
It was like a baby UFO flying around the bedroom.
It was definitely sentient, and it came down and it defied physics.
It moved really intelligently too, and deliberately. And the fan was blowing towards it, so
at full speed.
Immediately, I didn't feel like it was dust. It just
and it was dark. It was a black ball, and then it grew a tail, and it just hovered above the bed.
It started doing figure eights on the ceiling, and the tail started coming out. So it started to look like a snake almost, Kind
of like a sperm.
Yeah, yeah.
But it came and it hovered. And just hovered in place, about 6 inches above the bed.
Right above the mirror, yeah.
And then finally, I was able to move, and all I could think was, I want to touch it. What is this, And I go to touch it, and it won't let me touch it. It just rushes
it was
straight into Chris's chest.
Like an arrow. It shot from there to my chest within, fractions of a second.
He had on a white T-shirt, and I had a stack of white washcloths right by me. So immediately, I just grab a white washcloth, and I'm trying to rub it off his shirt. What is this? Was it smoke, hair, a ball of, what do you do when you can't make sense of what you see?
Yeah, we looked at the shirt right as soon as it happened, and it wasn't nothing there. We was
we were
thought
all.
we was gonna find something on my white shirt.
Oh.
That there was nothing.
We weren't scared though. It was kind of like we were mesmerized.
I never felt like, even when it hit me, I didn't feel any different. I got chills just from, something crazy happening like that.
Of
But
course, by then we were all war veterans when it came to all this stuff,
yeah, that thing was child's play compared to what we normally see in the house.
Right. And we didn't know what it was forever. Like, I kept like trying to figure out what kind of orb, it was that didn't have light coming from it.
You think of orb, it's normally a light color, in darkness, so it stands out. This was black in broad daylight against white background.
Right.
It just, I don't know.
And then just this year, I was reading somewhere and I came across what made more sense, and that was that it was ectoplasm.
Yeah.
And basically, ectoplasm uses like the skin cells and the physical stuff. It's a spirit that draws off a physical medium's
And it's a really
body.
weak spirit. It's really a low level, apparition that has no power, and that's the most power it has, just to be visible.
Right.
Most of them appear to be something bigger and grander, or more intimidating.
And what it does is it's like it's drawing off your energy. So that was the big awakening I had was, okay, maybe everywhere I go is not haunted. Maybe I'm just able to see this better than maybe the next person.
Yeah.
So anyway, through some books that we were reading, or I was reading actually, kind of doing research on different stuff, I came across the term ectoplasm, and I'm like, ectoplasm? Isn't that the thing in Ghostbusters,
Yeah,
But back in like the 1920s, during the spiritualist movement, physical mediums were kind of common, and I guess they're wired more like a battery, and a spirit can draw off their energy and come into physical form.
Unfortunately, a lot of those seances and stuff that ended up being fake, they would fake them to make more money,
Right.
which, diminished real claims that people probably had back then.
Right, yeah. And I just read recently that ectoplasm doesn't really exist anymore, and I'm here to tell you that this was definitely real.
We got slimed.
Yeah, essentially, like, sort of. But that was something that wasn't so scary. That kind of was more of a mystery all this time until this year, and I was reading on that. And that made more sense than it being an orb, because there was no light, and it was actually, like, you saw it come out of the back of my head. It was a big mystery to me, because I'm like, was I possessed? It's like, am I evil? And it doesn't seem that
We
way.
immediately didn't feel any uneasiness or fear from it. It was
But there was way too much going on in that house. And, like, there was something very dark and aggressive that would not leave, and was just kind of building on our fear, our negative emotions. And it became clear, due to some other reasons in the family, that we need to get out of there. Like, so first of all, my mom needed to sell that house. And I just felt like my job was making sure she got out and somewhere safe. And, like, our number one goal was to get out of there. We were terrified by the time we left. And
I'd started seeing a demon. I'm gonna call it what it was. This demon that I was seeing. The only thing I can describe it as is like Jeepers Creepers. The main character in Jeepers Creepers. It was dark, like
black.
jet black, but it had scales, and its eyes glowed. And it would hang out in the garage. It would sit in the rafters and lurk over people and just wait. And it was tall.
I saw it too. It scared me. I was terrified.
It was at least a foot taller than me. I'm 6 foot, and I looked up to it the day it grabbed me. And
I quit going in the garage.
That day it actually tossed me. Do you remember when my neck got cut on the steps? Before that had happened, I was hit in the back of the head. Something flew and hit me. Later, I found out it was a wrench because my blood was on it. So you remember when you come out and found me on the steps bleeding out?
Yeah,
I had
you
a knot
that
on the
red
back of my
sweatshirt
head.
on.
Yeah, that was from that demon. And it spoke to me off. It was very aggressive, oppressive. It was...
It scared the crap out of me.
It wanted everyone to die.
Yeah.
It wanted everyone to bleed. It wanted everyone to suffer.
And it had pretty much succeeded at that point. I think we were at the point where like, why are we keeping fighting this? Let's just go. The last few nights we were both getting scratches on us in our sleep.
Oh yeah, I was.
And we left. We packed as much stuff as we could in the car.
That night I was laying in the bed facing you. And my back was to the wall. You remember we kept hearing the noise over in the corner right by the bed?
Yeah.
And something clawed me. Like, it felt like fire running down my back.
Left 3 scratches.
Yeah, left 3 scratches. And we just couldn't wait to get out of here. We had been, like,
We felt like
all
we
the
were
way
running
up
for our
until the
life.
point when we left. We was spraying holy water. We was praying. We was doing everything humanly possible to get rid of this because...
And we had a lot of assistance, really, yeah.
And we all was very lucky to escape with our life, especially me because it focused on me, I think, because of my injuries and
because you called it.
Me taunting it. So, like, this is a warning out there. Don't play with things like that. Like, I knew when I knew when I did it, it was wrong, but I had no hope left in me.
Well, you also had a lot of concussions, yeah.
It just was out of frustration I invited it in. And that's all something like that needs. Is that one little thing you tell it that gives it domain over you. I literally invited a demon into me.
You didn't have to tell me anymore that I felt like this was after blood because it made it clear that it was. Most of the really bad stuff happened within a 1-month period, starting with Bill, my stepdad, and then, moving on to the animals and then the neighbor. So by the time we left, we got as much stuff as we could get in the car. And my mom was already up in Virginia. We had found Buddy, the horse. We had found him a good home. And it was just like, let's go. We're not looking back. And I haven't been back to North Carolina since because it was that impactful on me.
Yeah.
So.
We'll cover what happened after we left. We thought we left it there, but we wasn't so lucky. We'll cover that on another episode.
Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. If you have any questions about this or, just want to share any story that you have, please go to the website or, our Facebook page at Metaphysical Dentist and, write down any questions.
Or you can email us at metaphysicaldentist@gmail.com or join our Facebook group under Metaphysical Dentist. We're on Twitter, Instagram under the same names. Check out Lightseed Oracle on Facebook for Reiki and...
Reiki, like I do Reiki and
I don't have the right speakwage to say the words.
But please, and if you want to share your story or just tell us about it, please share it because I love hearing other people's stories. And, no, you're not crazy. There are other people that have experienced it. Don't tell your psychiatrist. They don't like that stuff.
No.
But you can definitely talk to us about it.
And we might invite you to the show.
Right.
On Zoom or in person. We want to make this interactive so everyone can tell the story.
And, and a lot of the shows in the future, I don't want to always talk about the macabre. I like to talk about things we did to help us with solutions because that was the things we were lacking. Luckily, we had some good people come into our life and kind of help us. But, if we'd have had some of this information before, maybe we'd have been a little bit more ready, prepared. But anyway, we're going to be trying to focus in the future more on how we got through it, what it all meant, and healing from it, and, just moving forward. So, we did experience some miracles after we left that house. Chris quit having the seizures.
Almost immediately.
Yeah. And I had a long-going issue with chronic migraines that surprisingly just kind of started to clear up finally. And now I am pain-free. I am a Reiki master, so that helps. But
we are more cautious than curious these days.
So join us for our next podcast, and we'll go over some more. Leave your questions. Tell us your stories. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Well, Nora thought she saw a ghost, but I didn't see anything.
A Twisted Attic production.